Thanksgiving for me, yes, is a day of the year on the calendar, but what it really is an emotion that I can continuously tap into and quintessentially reminisce and recall the feeling of being amongst the Rienzos. That's Thanksgiving because of how they made me feel and how they made Thanksgiving come alive for me as a feeling in my heart and as a sentiment and as an emotion, as opposed to what was the food and what were the decorations. I have no idea. I don't remember. I don't even remember the stories that were told. I just remember laughing at the stories and I just remember an emotion. We are near the 30-year anniversary and I honor the Rienzo family because I remember that feeling every Thanksgiving for the past 30 years.
It's funny, the people that come into your life that you don't ever realize that will change your life, and they probably don't know that they've changed your life.
Strangers can become family and friends can become family. Happy ThanksLiving, everybody.
Welcome to Simply Enough. This is Zachary and Elizabeth, and thanks for tuning in.
If you're liking our podcast, we'd love it if you'd share with your friends and family.
And then rate and review to raise our visibility and spread the message of enoughness.
We love you, and remember, you are simply enough.
Just as you are.
Period.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Simply Enough. I'm Mr. Zachary Leonard.
And I'm Dr. Elizabeth Ignacio. And welcome to Simply Enough. Everybody, it is Thanksgiving week. Hooray!
Yay!
For those who might have listened to a previous episode where we were talking about Thanksgiving, let me tell you one of the things I'm most thankful for about Thanksgiving is that I don't have to make a big deal about Thanksgiving as much as I used to, meaning what I learned from the past two COVID Thanksgivings, at least with my own family, is that I don't have to put pressure on myself to make it this big to-do and this big ta-da in terms of the food that's being served and the silverware and the plates that I'm using, and is everything just picture perfect, Architectural Digest, Martha Stewart perfection. That, that's not what Thanksgiving is about. And again, never waste a good pandemic. That's what I learned from the two past COVID Thanksgivings, is just the joy of the holiday. And the joy of the holiday really comes from being cognizant and aware of everything to be thankful for. And then, yes, if one is able to be amongst friends and family, that is the true meaning. And so I'm very thankful for that epiphany and that release of pressure. The funny thing too about Thanksgiving, in that it used to make me feel self-imposed, by the way. Nobody else made me feel pressured, but I had self-imposed pressure about Thanksgiving and about making everything picture perfect, correct. But I also, even younger, when I was in college and med school, for example, Thanksgiving Thanksgiving coming up always made me a little bit uneasy because, here I was, a girl from Hawaii living on the East Coast. And it was a little unsettling feeling sometimes, where, what would I do for Thanksgiving, or where would I go for Thanksgiving? And I have to tell you that Thanksgiving as a holiday makes me think most, not only of my immediate blood-related DNA family, but actually how I was made to be extended family by a loving, gracious, generous family who took me in and treated me as if I was family. And that would be a shout out to the Rienzo family in Falls Church, Virginia, whose daughter, Cecilia, I love you, Cecilia. Oh my God, I'm getting tearful. Cecilia Rienzo Castiello was my classmate in undergrad, and then in med school, where I still remained in DC. We were dear friends while I was in med school, and she lived in DC. And one Thanksgiving, because I didn't have anywhere to go, my dear friend Cecilia invited me over to her parents' home in Falls Church, Virginia. And, the funny thing is I was a little bit intimidated because Cecilia's dad was none other than the athletic director at Georgetown University. And one of the true founders of the Big East Conference, and his presence loomed large on the Georgetown University campus. I mean, he was nearly a deity. That's Francis Rienzo, who I now lovingly call Uncle Frank. But so I was a little nervous to be invited to their home for Thanksgiving. But upon going to their home, Mr. Rienzo, who seemingly has this kind of like stern face, and again, his presence and his personality and his reputation precedes me, and he looms large, was just such a teddy bear. And I'm getting emotional. Sorry. He's such a teddy bear, and he loved to laugh, and he loved to have just this mischievous smile on his face. And as loving as he was, my God, Auntie Joan, his wife, Mrs. Rienzo, God bless her, this angel on earth, was just so gracious and so generous and so warm and so loving. And I'll never forget that Thanksgiving that I spent with the Rienzos. Thank you, Cecilia, for the invitation. And I just felt so at home. I was literally not at somebody's house. I was truly welcomed into their home for such a family feeling Thanksgiving. And so that meant the world to me, being this, girl from Hawaii, thousands of miles away, to feel truly like family in their home. Little did I know how much more poignant that Thanksgiving would be, and how nostalgic I look at that Thanksgiving, because within the year, Auntie Joan, Mrs. Rienzo, would come down with cancer, and she fought valiantly. And I was blessed with the privilege of being a first-year medical student at the time. So when she would be in the hospital, I would be able to go and visit her, and beyond visiting hours, I would be allowed to go and visit Mrs. Rienzo and feel even more like family by being a part of her journey and Mr. Rienzo's journey. And may I say, she was an angel on this earth, and she's now an angel in heaven. And I always think of that Thanksgiving with the Rienzos as the epitome of all of my Thanksgivings, to be honest. And so I really actually do, as much as I love having Thanksgiving with my immediate DNA blood related, family, I really do look at Thanksgiving just as equally as my holiday with the Rienzo family. And they literally became family. Mr. Rienzo was there for me during my med school graduation, 3 years later. And he has now transitioned and reunited with Auntie Joan. So he is in heaven as well. But literally every Thanksgiving, I take a moment to reflect, think, and give thanks for that Thanksgiving and that extended family that I gained with the Rienzos. And it makes me think of how much, while the holidays might be, and gratefully so, about family, that family isn't just who you were born into, who shares your DNA, who's your blood relation. Family can be chosen, family can be invited. And I just thank you for letting me do this homage to the Rienzo family, because I do honor them every year, especially around Thanksgiving.
I hope that our listeners at this point will pause and go to YouTube and watch the beginning of this episode, because there's a smile that lives just on the crook of your mouth as you're telling this story. And there's a lightness that comes out of your eyes as you're sharing. And for us to be invited not only into this family that means so much to you, but also this memory and this experience is really a gift for us. So I really encourage our listeners to stop, pause, go to YouTube and watch you tell this story and watch you invite us into this, because I just learned so much about you and this memory and this experience and this family that has truly become your family, your ohana, and has transformed who you are. So thank you for sharing that with us. No, truly. Can you share some of the details about that Thanksgiving and what you ate, what you did, and just some of the details of that moment with the Rienzos?
Do you want to know what's so funny? And I do. Thanks for asking that question, because I do think that this is an important part of my memory.
Yeah.
Of that Thanksgiving, which has become my quintessential idea and epitome of Thanksgiving, which is I don't remember a thing. I only remember and can tap into and bring up, which is what you saw in my face, the feeling.
Wow.
So I don't remember the details of what did Auntie Joan, what did Mrs. Rienzo feel? I do remember the laughter. I do remember my discomfort of oh, I'm going to have to greet, the Mr. Rienzo. And then the being awash with relief of seeing the glimmer in his eye, the twinkle in his eye, and the mischievous smile when he's teasing either myself or my other classmate Alice, who joined us, or teasing Cecilia or Teresa. And I just remember the sense of home. I remember the feeling. And I don't remember if it was Maya Angelou or somebody who said
Maya Angelou,
right? Maya Angelou.
Yeah.
And if you know the quote better than I, let's have you say it. It's along the lines of no one's ever really going to remember what you said, but they're going to remember how you made them feel. Yep. And I'm telling you, that's what Thanksgiving is for me. Thanksgiving is a feeling. And absolutely, by the way, I do have wonderful memories of feelings of other Thanksgivings with other friends and Thanksgivings with my immediate family. So that's not at all to diminish that. It's just that feeling I can draw upon my memories from my Thanksgiving with the Rienzos. And then especially because it is so supremely poignant that I then lost Mrs. Rienzo the following year, or by the time of the following year. It just made that one Thanksgiving in the Rienzo family so quintessential, in the Rienzo family home, so quintessential to me that it was such a blessing to capture that feeling. And I carry that feeling with me every single Thanksgiving since. So we are near the 30-year anniversary, and I honor the Rienzo family because I remember that feeling every Thanksgiving for the past 30 years because of how they made me feel and how they made Thanksgiving come alive for me as a feeling in my heart and as a sentiment and as an emotion, as opposed to what was the food that was served and what were the decorations. And I have no idea. I don't remember. I don't even remember the stories that were told. I just remember laughing at the stories. And I just remember an emotion. So Thanksgiving for me, yes, is a day of the year on the calendar, but what it really is in emotion that I can continuously tap into and quintessentially reminisce and recall the feeling of being amongst the Rienzos. That's Thanksgiving. And it therefore, again, not to diminish the feelings that I've had with subsequent Thanksgivings with my family and with friends who've been invited to my home. But the point is just that while that's quintessential and something that I recall every single year, I then build upon that feeling. So what a wonderful foundation, not to diminish the Thanksgivings prior, but that really was a quintessential feeling that made Thanksgiving far more real than just a day on the calendar or just the quintessential turkey meal. It brought me so much joy, that feeling, that it made Thanksgiving that much more important to me because of that feeling. Whereas, to be honest, as an immigrant, I didn't really quite get Thanksgiving. Mm-hmm. It wasn't quite as important to me because it is an American holiday. So as an immigrant, I really looked to Thanksgiving as being like, okay, that's the day that you're surrounded by friends and family, and you have the turkey and you say what you're thankful for. Check, did it, done it, that kind of thing. So that Thanksgiving really brought an emotion and a sentiment to that holiday. And it made Thanksgiving that much more real and personal and lived, as opposed to just check marked, to the point where I then continued a tradition. And I importantly say continue, because my first Thanksgiving as an orthopedic surgery intern, I had to spend in the hospital. I was the one assigned to be on call for that. And so there I was, and, you're given a coupon by the hospital, to get the turkey meal at the cafeteria. But let me tell you, the turkey color was about as green-gray as the canned green beans that came on the plate too, right? So so that was my Thanksgiving. If we're just talking about the food, I mean, that was my Thanksgiving as a intern for orthopedic surgery. So I was in my call room that night, and it was a quiet night, fortunately. And all of a sudden, my chief resident came in, and he was also somebody to be intimidated by, but who I grew to love and be grateful for. But he walked in with this huge spread of the food that he was having at his home. And he took the time away from his family. He made, leftover plates from his exquisite banquet that was served at home to bring it over to the call room in the hospital so that I could have a real Thanksgiving meal. And he said that his chief resident did that for him when he was an intern or junior resident. So he wanted to continue that tradition. And I remember that feeling of gratitude of thank you for remembering me with this home cooked meal that you took time away from your own family to come to the hospital to bring it. And I continued that. So I continued that tradition, as a resident, and then even as an attending, here in Hawaii, I would bring Thanksgiving to whoever was a resident in the hospital. And Thanksgiving has come to mean so much to me, when honestly it used to not be anything more than a day on the calendar and a day off from school or from work kind of thing.
Yeah, I have some similar stories as well. But before I share some of those, I wish I had champagne or something to toast the Rienzo family. And I hope this doesn't come across as patronizing. I really do wish that we could honor them with some kind of toast or some expression, because the feeling that you're talking about can never be taken away from you. You have that forever, and they gave that to you, right? And you gave it to them. Like, you are part of that for them. And I truly believe that kind of magic can be created at any time, but it was created then, and that was shared among the group of people. I think what you are doing right now, and I'll speak out loud, what you are doing for me is you are flooding me with similar memories of times in which I have felt similar things. Now, there tended to be around Thanksgiving. I can think of quite a few stories around Thanksgiving when I've had a similar sense. Okay,
Zachary,
so my first Friendsgiving that we had in Hawaii, actually this kind of the spawn of Friendsgiving, the time that I took the Chinatown bus on Thanksgiving Day to go visit my best friend Brock in Vienna, Virginia. And I got on the Chinatown bus. I was the only white person, and they brought on these fried Peking ducks, and they started breaking it apart and passing it around. They don't know me, and they're giving me pieces of the duck to say, here, you're now part of our trip. And I just remember feeling like I'm part of this group. I was welcomed in this little group. It smelled awful on that bus for 4.5 hours from New York City to Virginia. But that kicked off that moment of me getting to spend time with a family that I love, with a friend that I love, and have a similar experience to what you're talking about with my best friend Brock. But it also occurred with strangers, where it was
you became family in that moment.
Yes. My very first Thanksgiving in New York City, when we literally had a picnic on the floor, And it wasn't about the fancy, we didn't have money. Like we were in our Harlem apartment. We didn't have money for like, the organic turkey or the whatever. It didn't matter. It didn't matter. So you sharing that story has flooded me with similar stories of times that I have felt that sense of joy and connection. And I think that's what, in those moments with my family, and I've had those with my own family as well, like my biological family. But when we go around and we say what we're thankful for, I think that's an attempt to try to do what you're doing right now. What I am also recognizing is that we often think about things we have in the current present, and we don't, at least I haven't ever thought about an honoring of something that I live with every day that I can be equally grateful for. And it's not necessarily about a person. It can be about an experience. It can be about a memory. It can be about something else that I've experienced that's in the past that I carry with me. Usually I say, well, I'm thankful that I got to be with my family. Or I'm thankful for, something that I have rather than something that I carry with me or that I lived through or that I lived with. Does that make sense? Am I making sense at all?
Totally. Yes.
Okay.
What you carry with you. Cause that's what I've done for these nearly 30 years with the Rienzo. And that one Thanksgiving 30 years ago is I carry that with me. And I'm so grateful every year for 30 years since then. Yes.
And what you're also bringing up again, going back to a previous episode, the details don't really matter. So this is like, buy the Costco dinner. Who cares? The point is about fellowship, or the point is about being with another human being or connection with another. It doesn't matter if your cranberry sauce curdled or jellied to the point where it's inedible. Like that's a story. That's a memory, whatever it is. I know, and I'm going to speak out loud. There was a Thanksgiving back in California. I was back in California with my family, like my mom and dad and brother, sister, and my mom was relinquishing cooking duties to us. That was very difficult for her. She was very proud to be the person that took care of Thanksgiving. And I said, I wanted to brine the turkey. And this was like, that's a cardinal sin. No, you do not brine the turkey. You don't do anything different. The meal stays the same. My mom liked that meal. She liked the tradition of it and everything. So me introducing a new preparation was like, no, absolutely not. I don't remember if that turkey was good. I don't remember if it was, I don't know if it was dry or moist. It doesn't matter. The point was there was something in that story now of us kind of like joking at the table and laughing about the brine of the turkey and mom freaking out and mom trying to be like, oh, it's not that bad. And the box mashed potatoes versus the real mashed potatoes. And, these now became stories of an experience that we share, that we carry with us, that transcend whether or not the turkey was dry or whether or not there was enough gravy, or like those things that I admittedly get worked up about in the moment really don't matter. And I don't want to lessen people that take great care to make sure the table looks beautiful or make sure the food looks. I'm fully supportive of wanting to make that experience elevated in whatever way that means, but at the cost of overlooking the opportunity to create an experience or connect with another individual is what you're reminding of us right now. And that harkens back to a previous episode. So thank you for bringing it up.
For those that are new, at least what I was talking about in terms of the previous episode and Thanksgiving is how, because of COVID, we didn't have the big to do and ta-da. And here I was like apologizing to my family that there wasn't any, turkey and all that kind of stuff. And lo and behold, every single person at the table mentioned, well, actually, we never really were about the turkey. I don't really like turkey. And like, even when we went last year, we went actually to a restaurant and I made sure that they had a turkey dinner to order should somebody want turkey, and nobody ordered it. And they all admitted, yeah, we don't really dig turkey anyway. And it's just so funny, all of the pressure that we put up on ourselves relative to what we think in terms of a Norman Rockwell Thanksgiving. Now, for those, to your point, that love the beautiful pomp and circumstance, and it adds to their enjoyment of the holiday by bringing out the best china and the beautiful silverware, and they have joy in the thought process and the preparation of everything. More power to you. That is not to say abandon that. It's more just a recognition of what brings you joy. does that work for you? For
Yeah.
me, it wasn't. It was causing me more stress. I was actually short with my family when they would come over and offer to help, because I'd be like your mom. Like, no, I got it.
I got
I
it.
have
Yeah.
my map set out for where I'm
Yeah.
going to put the platters, and here's the timing, because I only have one oven, so it's got to be this perfect timing. And it was a disservice to my family, and it was a disservice to me in the enjoyment of it.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'll just leave it there. Anyway, go ahead.
Well, I want to say, so I know this was like hit a trend, I don't know, 10 years ago or so, the idea of Friendsgiving. In the queer community, we say that queer people are blessed with the ability to choose their family. We say that because the implication is that many have lost a family because their family does not support to support them or accept them, et cetera. So, we say that queer people have the ability to choose their family. So whether or not this is true for other minority groups, I'm not saying that, but within the queer community, often we would spend holidays with friends or others that have become our family because we may not be welcome at our own family. So the idea of Friendsgiving, which is very trendy, et cetera, at least it had its trend, was something that, at least in the queer community, we had been celebrating for a while. Okay. So the setup of all of that is, I think I've talked about in a previous episode, when I lived in New York City, we lived in the Upper West Side near where they blew up the Macy's Thanksgiving Day parade balloons. And in New York City, it was a local tradition to go and walk around and see them being inflated. And that was always on the Wednesday before Thanksgiving. We went with some friends. We went out to dinner afterwards. We went to a diner. It was the only place that we could get in. And I wanted chicken fingers and French fries. That was just what I wanted. And it became a tradition on the Wednesday before Thanksgiving for me to have, and then for us to have chicken fingers and French fries. Our maybe first or second Thanksgiving in Hawaii, Kevin and I had some friends over on the Wednesday before Thanksgiving, and we ordered chicken fingers and French fries from Teddy's Burgers. For what came out of that night, a lot of laughter, a lot of joy, a lot of everything you're talking about. But the other thing that came out of it was this idea of a sauce off, where people would come, be invited. They would come with a sauce, a dipping sauce, and we would have an event the day before Thanksgiving where it's a little competition where we get to like take our chicken fingers and French fries and test out all these sauces that people make. And we did that for a couple more years living in Hawaii. And it became something, we had 20 or 30 people we would use. Where we lived, there was a common room, and we would reserve that space. People would come in and we had sauces, and then we would play games. And the first night with that small group of friends, looking around, excuse me if I get emotional, looking around and being like, I am so blessed with this person in my life. And not only am I blessed with them in my life, but I'm blessed with the experience and the memory that this event with them gave me. And then it had a ripple effect, because the next year we actually took that idea that came out of it and it became another memory. And then the following year became another memory. And being able to, quote unquote, choose your family and or have an experience where I couldn't be with my biological family, but now I want to celebrate the holiday with other people, invited the possibility of having the kind of experience that you're talking about. And I too get this like smile on my face when I think of Anya and Aiko and Megan sitting there, and we're talking about the sauces and we're just giggling at, okay, then there's going to be a trophy, but we're not like a legit trophy. We want to like go to like Target and we want to like glue something together and kind of hodgepodge something. And just the details don't really matter. Like, I don't remember whose sauce won. I don't remember. I just remember that time with them and thinking back to how I felt, what came out of that, the feelings that I felt because of the events that came out of that, and have just a similar sense of just a pure and humble gratitude and joy that event existed in my life and those people exist in my life.
Yes, exactly. And what I love also, as an ever so slight tangent from your beautiful, heartwarming story, is especially, for those who maybe this Thanksgiving isn't exactly quite what they want it to be, or due to circumstances, they're not surrounded by or with family or friends who have become family. If one can still just tap into the memory of any event on a different date and make that a part of your Thanksgiving and relive that memory, then that is how one can have family or the friends who have become family as part of this week's Thanksgiving. So fine, this Thursday, the day that happens to be designated as Thanksgiving, you might be working late, or you might be an intern or resident on call at the hospital, or you are a college student and you are not able to, be home with your family. Please spend some time thinking and literally reliving, because when you relive it, those memories can bring about the feelings so that you can actually literally re-experience that event. Think of the events, the times, the situations, the circumstances when you were with family that you loved or the friends who have become family. Again, though, yes, Thanksgiving as one day triggers me into thinking lovingly of the Rienzos, because the holiday marks that for me as a reminder. The truth of the matter is how much better we would be not only to just think of Thanksgiving, but ThanksLiving. So when we live every day with a sense of gratitude, as opposed to just November 20, whatever this year.
Yes.
A life of ThanksLiving is a far more joyful life. So don't even put pressure for those who don't want to. Don't even put pressure about this Thursday, Thanksgiving Day. And don't even put pressure, about trying to, though I just suggested it, ignore me. Don't even put pressure in terms of having to think of people in particular, in terms of what there is to be thankful for. There's the fact that the sun rose again today, and that there's air to breathe, or when we've talked about, there's been some evidence-based outcome studies that show that the practice of gratitude, for example, things like gratitude journaling or thinking of 3 things to be grateful for every day, actually is a boost to one's well-being. The specifics of that is not to just rattle off, as I'm guilty of this on Thanksgiving, I'm grateful for home, food, health, family. But instead actually thinking, rather than generalities, in thinking and reflecting on specific things. I am grateful for this sweater that keeps me warm. I am grateful for the fact that I have wireless service for my cell phone so that I can connect. Or I am grateful for this memory that I had of this person, to the point where I'm going to reach out now on this day, to reach out to that person to say that I'm thankful for them. That's that practice where one is truly mindful and aware of things to be thankful for, or people to be thankful for. We've talked about this, how to be blessed is one thing, but to be aware of one's blessings is a double blessing in and of itself. So that awareness of one's blessings, that gratitude, that heightens one's sense of gratitude, one's sense of thanksgiving, and celebrates whatever it is one is grateful for doubly so.
Yeah. You know who do this really well? I'm smiling because I can't wait to tell you this story. I think you're going to just giggle. Children do this very, very well and very easily, particularly younger children. So as you know, I, for quite a few years, taught kindergarten and first grade. And I just love that age, that 5, 6, 7-year-old age, because they're so complex and deceivingly complex. And you can have such beautiful insights to purity because they are just balls of joy and sunshine and honesty. So I was teaching kindergarten in New York City. We're sitting around the rug, and I always did an end of the day afternoon meeting. We called it a closing circle. We typically ended the day with a roses and thorns or fruits and veggies, although I love veggies, but kind of like what went well that day and what didn't go well. But this was prior to Thanksgiving. So it was a, what are you grateful for? And I will never forget. Now, many of the kids said things like what you're talking about. They didn't say like their sweater, but they're like, I'm thankful for my teddy bear because when I go to sleep, my teddy bear makes me feel safe. Things like that. You're like, spot on. Awesome.
Yeah.
Love that. But we had this
and
little
specific.
boy.
See how
very
specific that was? Yeah.
Very specific. We had this little boy stand up and he was like, I'm thankful for boogers. And of course, giggle, 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 like 5-year-olds love boogers. So this is like funny. And we're like, okay, so why are you thankful for boogers? Help us out. Because my first thought is like, like, cause you can pick them and fling them. I don't know. Like what I'm trying to get into his mind. He goes, because boogers make sure that my nose stays wet. And if my nose stays wet, I don't get nosebleeds.
Love him. So true.
So true.
Medically true there, Junior. I love it. Love him.
Very specific, very
specific.
clear. And the best part about it was, so the denouement to that story, if you will, is the following Monday, I got an email from his parents. And apparently they do this thing where they go around at dinner, like much like many families, I guess, at Thanksgiving, and say what they're grateful for. And the mom wrote to me, she goes, did you prep him? Because this is what he said. And I said, no, I did not prep him at all. That was all your son's doing. But because he got to go first, the family was then encouraged to think of something equally specific. They didn't use that word, but like kind of silly thinking.
Yeah.
When they went around. So it wasn't like, I'm thankful for air that I breathe, which is great.
Yeah.
But they each had to come up with something kind of bizarre. Like, I'm thankful for my fingernails because I can pluck the strings of my guitar on my fingernail, with my fingernails, something like that. So this little guy sparked a very different way to do the I'm grateful for at their Thanksgiving dinner. And I guess that became kind of their tradition going forward.
Well, and ironically, though, we are calling it different.
Yeah.
Isn't it ironic that is actually the exact recommendation for these wellness-based studies that have shown that the practice of gratitude increases one's well-being? But it's not the quick, again, checklist, checkbox list of home, food, shelter, health, family, friends.
Yeah. It's
very specific. That engenders a feeling of gratitude and engenders and refreshes and relives the memory of what it is to be grateful for. And then that awareness carries forward so that, guess what? Now that you just told me this story, I'm never going to look at boogers the same way.
Right.
Honestly,
right.
I'm never going to, and I'm a surgeon, but I'm never going to look at fingernails the same way. Do you know? And that's how funny it is called Thanksgiving. That's the gift that keeps on giving. Mm-hmm. That awareness of one's blessing is a gift that keeps on giving. And then the sharing of that awareness by verbalizing it, by sharing with somebody else, that is a gift that keeps on giving to that other person that you just shared what you're grateful for. Mm-hmm. It just keeps going.
Mm-hmm. And to that end, the story that I shared about going down to Virginia on the Chinatown bus from New York City, I will never get to offer my thanks to the people on that bus for giving me what they gave me. That what seemed like maybe to them just kind of a normal act of bringing these ducks onto the bus. What was amazing to me is that I was welcomed into these strangers' world and their life. And I'm not necessarily ever able to share that with them, but because that experience existed, I can then do it for other people, or I can carry it forward in the same way that wonderful man brought that Thanksgiving meal to you. And then you did it to the next resident.
The tradition continued.
So it is ThanksLiving. And it's also an opportunity for that momentum to keep going, that snowball effect to keep going. Is what I wanted to say. That was the whole point. Jeez, Zach, you finally got there.
No, that's perfect. That's exactly. I love that. And I love, honestly, so you gained a family with which you couldn't communicate in their language, yet there they are, family. You are, I was going to say breaking bread, but I guess you're breaking duck necks. And I'll also say, in terms of the picture perfect Thanksgiving, there you are on a bus. You're not in a cute little home, with beautiful snowfall, like a Hallmark episode. You're on a bus. You're very much in the minority. You don't know the language, and that's not really your food. And they're sharing with you, and you have something to be grateful about for that experience. Yep. That's Thanksgiving.
Yep. Yep. And to what you were saying earlier, not every holiday is going to be a quote unquote home run, right? There are going to be some holidays that love it or hate it, are going to suck. And then there are going to be some holidays that are going to be bright spots in your life, but they're not isolated to holidays. They can exist on a random Tuesday in July when you and a group of people get together, or you're by yourself and you just have a magical moment by yourself or a magical moment with a group of people. Isolating it to one specific day robs us of the opportunity to see when it can occur at other times in our life as well.
Exactly. That's the ThanksLiving.
Yeah.
As opposed to the Thanksgiving Day, November 20 something every year.
Yeah.
One little nuance that I would love to add is, here in Hawaii, we are so very proud of the aloha spirit and how, we feel that we obviously not only originate, but engender, embody, personify the aloha spirit. But I have to say that the aloha spirit is alive and well anywhere and everywhere, including in the Rienzo home in Falls Church, Virginia. And my point about aloha being anywhere and everywhere is that also means friends and family can be anywhere and everywhere. And Thanksgiving can be any day of the year.
My first Thanksgiving at Notre Dame, my parents, they made the effort financially to make sure that I could come home for Thanksgiving. They wanted me to be home for Thanksgiving. If you've ever flown into the South Bend airport, you know that it's quite small. At least in 1999, it was a lot smaller than it is now. So there weren't many flights that left from South Bend to either go to Chicago or Michigan or another bigger regional airport. And it was expensive to do that. Luckily, though, we caught it at a good price. However, the flights at South Bend are often delayed. So flying from South Bend to Chicago and then Chicago back to Southern California, if your connection window was short enough, you may have missed it. So, and then Chicago the Chicago O'Hare Airport is quite large. So you can end at one terminal and need to go to the other end of another terminal in such a short amount of time. Well, and since this is a small puddle jumper, as they call it, it's usually the end of like the terminal that you don't need to be at, and you have to like hightail it if you've got a short connection. That's what happened this first Thanksgiving away from home. And the flight was delayed from South Bend. I only had a short amount of time to get to the other end of the airport to catch my connection. And luckily I did. They literally closed the door behind me. As I'm walking down the jet ramp onto the plane, just this rush of like, what would I have done if I had been stuck at the airport by myself on Thanksgiving? Like, would I have been able to get home the next day? And I'm walking onto the plane, just thinking like at 19 years old, like, Thanksgiving would have been ruined. Like all these things, like my parents would have been upset. Like I was just in such a tizzy, sweating and everything. And as I'm about to get on the plane, pit sweating, flop sweat. I mean, everything. I was beautiful. Let me tell you. And I get on the plane and there were two seats that were open, a window and a middle seat. And the person that was sitting on the aisle was a larger individual. Mm-hmm. So he gets up to let me sit down, and he had said that he had purchased the seat between us. Mm-hmm. And he was just a lovely, lovely man. It's funny, the people that come into your life that you don't ever realize that will like change your life, and they probably don't know that they've changed your life. Mm-hmm. So I'm sweating. I sit down, just this kind, beautiful soul turns to me and he says, "You made it." And I said, "I did." I said, I think I lost like 5 pounds because I ran from one end to the other and I didn't get to use the bathroom and everything. He's like, "Well, if you need to use the bathroom, once we get up, let me know and I'll get up," and blah, blah, blah. And I said, and then I just kind of like the stress of all that kind of hit me. And I just said, I don't know what I would have done. I don't know what I would have done if I hadn't made the flight. Like, I don't know if they had a later flight and et cetera. And he just turns and he goes, "You would have been okay. You would have been okay. Because you would have gotten to see the people that you love. You would have been fine." And I said, "Yeah, but but my parents would have been upset. I wouldn't have been in there for dinner or whatever." And he goes, "So you have Thanksgiving the next day. It doesn't live just on that one day."
Yes. Amen.
Like 19 years old, right? And this guy, this gentleman who will never know what he did, and I don't even know his name. So I thank you, whoever you were, mm-hmm. Helped me then realize it wasn't just about the holiday.
I'm loving that. I'm like in tears because I'm loving that. Because I'm going to demonstrate for our readers and viewers how even the giving and living of thanks doesn't have to be about Thanksgiving, and how just gratitude can be life-giving, in that it doesn't have to be related to the Thanksgiving holiday at all. This is how my mind goes, like this. Like like sometimes it's hard to follow my stream of consciousness. Sorry, everybody. But I don't know if Chicago O'Hare is like heaven on earth or something, because you're telling me this story of running in between the terminals. And I know O'Hare very well, because back in the day, there was no direct flight from Honolulu to Washington, D.C., which is where I went to school. So my route always was Honolulu, Chicago O'Hare, then O'Hare to DC National. So I'm very familiar with the O'Hare airport, the moving walkway between Terminal B and C. And anyway, sorry, I digress. But you're telling me that story brought about a memory of something that I carry with me throughout my life, for which I'm so grateful, and has nothing at all to do with Thanksgiving. Which is, I remember that I was a fourth-year medical student, and I was doing my interview rounds, interviewing for orthopedic surgery residency programs. And I had a connecting flight through O'Hare. And we, like you were saying, we were delayed getting into O'Hare, which meant that I was going to be delayed catching my connecting flight. And that was a stressful time for me, because these are my, interviews for orthopedic surgery residency. Like, this is going to be my future career. And it was just really clear that I wasn't going to make it. And darn it, that I had a big, bulky, what are those things called? The garment bag.
Yeah.
And, because that had my suit for the interview.
Yeah.
And we were so late, and the garment bag was very unwieldy. And I think I might've had a bag of x-rays too. So anyway, I could not manage. So I got out of the plane. I'm pretty sure the doors are already closing at my gate, which is, the other terminal. Yep. So I'm running super lopsided, and it's just not working. Like, I have to drop and stop a lot. All of a sudden, whoosh, this man comes. I don't even remember his face. I don't know if I ever really saw his face. He's running behind me and passes me. So clearly he was on the flight with me, grabs my garment bag, because I had put it down, because I'm struggling, grabs, and he goes, "Come on, let's go." And so here I at first initially thought he's stealing my stuff. But no, he's like, "Come on, let's go." And he's run past me. And I'm like, wait. And he's yelling, but not stopping. He's yelling, "What gate? What gates?" And I yelled whatever, B5 or whatever. So he has my stuff, and he's faster than me while he's carrying my heavy, unwieldy stuff. And he's carrying his own things too. And I'm following him. He's beating me to my gate. He gets to my gate, drops it off, and he says, "There you go, be safe." And he ran off to his own gate. I have no idea who that man was. I swear O'Hare is heaven on earth, because that guy must have been an angel. But that is something for which that experience is something that I actually rethink and relive in my heart and mind often, because there's just little moments in life where there are these miraculous angels that through divine intervention, I have so much to be grateful for. And so here's your story about Thanksgiving, making me think about this story for which I'm grateful, that's going to add to my Thanksgiving. And I'm going to think about it when I think of the things that I'm grateful for. And literally, that has nothing at all to do with Thanksgiving, the holiday. But damn it, I'm going to remember that. And I'm going to name that as a specific that I'm thankful for on Thanksgiving Day. That's what gratitude does.
Yes. It's contagious. Gratitude is contagious. Because you were saying earlier, when I said, the boogers help keep your nose, moist, so that you don't get a nosebleed, and your fingernails are used to pluck your guitar strings. And you said, I'm never going to look at fingernails the same way. I'm never not going to look at O'Hare the same way. I am probably going to, I'm going to be going through there next week. I will probably walk through one of those those terminals and be like, I wonder if this is where Elizabeth's angel showed up and darted with her garment bag. And I will now be a part of that memory. Because you gave that to me. And the act of telling a story, particularly, I think, grounded in gratitude, is contagious. It's infectious. And so maybe I invite our listeners and viewers, if you do the tradition of like, let's go around and say what we're grateful for, maybe consider taking a little bit of a cue from us and share a story, share a memory, share an experience, something that has sparked gratitude in your life, and then just watch the domino effect of how that goes around triggers, goes around the room and the energy that comes out of it. Because because
of the specifics,
exactly
of to be grateful for, right?
Yes. Well, I could keep going, and I don't think we should.
Right? I almost feel like we can do like a rampage of all the things that we're grateful for. Do you know what I mean? And rather than it be a list per se, it's actually events and stories of that bring about what we're grateful for. Because it's super easy to say, I'm thankful for food, shelter, health, family, friends, job, housing. Like, yeah. I mean, that's a quick list to go by, but the experiencing of what we're grateful for, that's different.
Yep.
That's perpetuating.
Okay. So I will wrap us up by sharing something I'm grateful for to end.
Okay.
To end. And then I invite you, if you feel inclined as well. I want to say that I am grateful for the mechanical cow in the Gristedes grocery store in New York City, near the apartment that I lived in with my friend Taylor and my brother. And I'll tell you why. I am grateful for that cow. So when you walked into Gristedes, it had a little radar. So it would trigger a little voice animation. It would also move a little bit, and it would say, "Hello and welcome to Gristedes. We hope you have a moving experience."
Moving,
and it's a cow. Yeah, moving experience. Don't see it? Just ask. Like, it was awful. Okay. Why I'm grateful for that cow is because the first time I walked in to that grocery store, I was with my brother, who I love. I love my brother. He's one of the most important people in my life. We walked into it the day before Thanksgiving. This is Thanksgiving related, but we walked in to get groceries for our makeshift Thanksgiving that we were having as a family. And I associate that cow and that moment with my brother. And I smile when I think about the moving experience.
I love that.
Because it takes me back, right?
Yes.
To living with my brother and my friend Taylor and everything that came with that. So I'm putting out there, I'm thankful for that freaking mechanical cow at the Gristedes grocery store on Broadway because of the memories that it gave me with my brother and my friend, who I just love.
As a specific, because we're trying to think outside of the box, right?
Yeah.
I'm thankful for the pandemic. And I'm thankful for the pandemic because of it forcing me to take stock of less is more and not always having to rush to get things done, and how being is just as important as doing. And specifically when I think of thanks, okay, wow, I'm going to cry. So the pandemic, when we talk about the angels that walk this earth, the pandemic brought about so many stranger angels that showed up out of nowhere. And I'm specifically remembering how the first couple weeks of the shutdown and pandemic here in Hawaii, when there was a shortage of masks. Remember that, everybody? Yeah. There was a shortage of masks. And it was even debated whether or not to make fabric masks.
Right.
But people, because they just wanted to feel a part of something and that they were doing something to help, formed mask making groups and mask sewing groups. And I put a shout out on Facebook because, we stayed open in my medical office, but we were short on, we were actually down to like probably the last 2 days worth of masks. And so I humbly put out an ask on Facebook, and were inundated with fabric masks, hundreds upon hundreds, to the point where we actually ended up donating them to first responders and to hospitals. And those were strangers. Those were friends of friends that were dropping off masks. And though there's a lot to complain about the pandemic, I'm going to take this moment to be thankful and grateful for the lessons and the examples learned and witnessed during this time of the pandemic. Not the least of which, the lesson I learned that I don't have to make Thanksgiving turkey a big deal. Yeah, thinking outside of the box, I'm going to be thankful for these past 2 years of the pandemic.
So listeners, I invite you to come back to this episode and watch it, because there's something about being able to see somebody tell a story, for me, Elizabeth, that sparked further stories or experiences or related memories, because I got to watch you tell this story. And I think we can do that by listening, but there's something about watching the memory live on someone's face again that is inspirational. So check us out on YouTube. Watch this episode. I am thankful for this podcast and for you. I say this often at the end of every episode, but I truly do believe it. It has brought me a lot of joy. It has brought me a lot of memories. And even more so now, I will get to walk through O'Hare Airport, which I will say it many times does not feel like heaven.
There's angels there.
There are, and there are angels everywhere. And strangers can have a transformational effect on our lives if we are really truly living in a place of ThanksLiving. Because
strangers can become family, and friends can become family. I love you.
Love you. Thank you.
Happy ThanksLiving, everybody. And since we do drop this episode on Tuesdays, happy Gratitude, everybody.
Oh,
happy ThanksLiving.
awesome.
Happy Gratitude. Mwah.
Mwah.